This is what we're going to be talking about on the show today. It looks, I don't know if it looks good, but it's going to save a long time. It's freeze drying, looks like watermelon, and it preserves a lot of the nutrients. And my favorite fruit, raspberries. Have you tried this? Again, you can stock your cupboards full of these things, and they'll last, I think, over 20 years. But I bet you'll eat them by next summer. My guests today are from New Mexico State University, the Bernalillo County Extension Program, and we have Amber Benson Lehmer. She is a family and consumer science agent. Thank you so much for being here, Amber. And Dianne Christensen, again, is with us with the Bernalillo County Cooperative Extension Services, and she is also a family and consumer science agent, and both of you are so much more. Amber, what is your full title?
My full title is Family and Consumer Science Agent. My specialty is with food safety, food science, food preservation, food entrepreneurship, food technology, all things food.
All things food.
Yeah.
And Dianne Christensen, what is your full title?
I'm also a family and consumer science agent, and I specialize in wellness and chronic disease prevention and management, especially diabetes.
Which is prevalent here in the state of New Mexico.
Yes.
Does this help preserving our own food with diabetes, do you think, Amber?
Certainly, because you can control what goes into it. So you are the master of your own diet in that way.
Very good. You've been with Extension just for a short period of time. Welcome to New Mexico.
Thank you.
You're excited to be here. I know the Extension Services is excited to have you. I showed at the beginning of the program my favorite, watermelon. And you shared with me that now Extension Services are able to teach about freeze drying. We have a freeze dryer and raspberries, and if we freeze dry, it lasts a long time and it retains a lot of its nutrients.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of our extension offices, even around the country, are starting to get into freeze drying, and so with the university extension, there's a lot of research going on behind the scenes so we can make sure that this process is going to be safe for home consumers and delicious, of course. And so we've got some programs that we're developing to come out early fall, late fall, and then definitely next year is where we can start sharing this magical freeze drying process with our community.
But we're starting the extension service, the preservation courses. And let's just get right into it. Okay, I made a face when I talked about fermentation. I'm making a face again. It's part of it. Dianne Christensen, what is fermentation and why should I not be making a face?
Fermentation actually is really good for your gut, and it is a totally different, relies on different principles of food preservation. But Amber really is the expert on fermentation.
But it's part of your course. So yes. The course, again, starts more or less in August through, well, the end of August. But there are so many other courses. If they miss that one, they can go online and find out all these other classes that you are presenting this year, this fall, this winter, next year. But I see that we have fermentation in here.
In October, it's going to be our first one for this year, and we're going to teach all things kombucha, and it's going to be an intro level class, so anybody can come. The lab fee is only $10, so it's pretty accessible, and you'll get to take your own SCOBY home, which is...
Okay, these are all new languages. Show me. Now, Dianne Christensen knew what, can you pick it up
Of course, yeah.
Whatever.
All right, this
Young people know about this?
This one's pretty big.
What is it?
So this is going to be a kombucha starter. This is the culture.
Want to hold it up?
Yeah, so SCOBY, it stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And so this is going to be what the film is that you see that started to grow on the top of the kombucha. And so that's going to be the first thing that starts your kombucha.
What's a kombucha? The container?
Yeah, so it's a fermented tea. So
a fermented tea.
So we brew tea and we add a lot of sugar and then we add the SCOBY, and so that SCOBY eats up all the sugar and that's what ferments. And so it produces that lactic acid, which is what makes it have that tangy, tart, almost sour flavor. But it's really good for your gut.
Dianne, anything to add?
Well, I just, I had to get over the SCOBY. My daughter is very big into doing kombucha, and she even names her SCOBYs. So she was really into it. But it's a very refreshing drink, actually. I have a number of friends that do it. So even though that SCOBY thing on the top kind of is a little odd, you get get used to it. And a lot of people are doing it from home. It's fun. Yeah.
And it's for the taste that we're doing this, Amber, or what?
Well, it's definitely for the gut health. It's really good for everything inside of your body. It can help eliminate heartburn. It can help lower your blood pressure. These are all claims that have been made, and then there's some scientific research behind this. And the great thing is with kombucha, you can flavor it with really almost anything that you love. So you said earlier that you loved raspberries. So right now I have one, and I even brought a sample of it. So if you want to taste it later, we can do that. You do a second ferment. So after you brew this initial tea with the SCOBY, then you add whatever flavoring components that you want. So we did a raspberry with a little bit of grated ginger and some lemon, and then you let it sit for a little bit. It gets nice and bubbly and carbonated, and so then it makes, like Diane said, this really refreshing drink.
But the carbonation, I'm thinking, ooh, something's gone bad sometimes.
That means something's gone good.
Something's gone good. Oh, how funny. And the other raspberry is a drink as well?
So you can strain them out, or you can leave the particles inside the beverage too. That's really a personal preference.
But we do this, I had another Dr. Nuzzo on my program previously, and he talked about food is medicine. And in this case, Diane?
Yeah, there's just so many things, even like with diabetes prevention and management, just eating right helps you to manage your diabetes. And so rather than maybe always relying on medication, there's a lot of things people can do, particularly as they age. Because with chronic disease, age is the #1 risk factor with a lot of chronic diseases. And so if you're just more aware of what you're eating healthy, and being a bit more active, that can really help.
Kombucha. What's the other thing on top?
This one here, or this one?
Those are probably just beans, right?
Yeah. So I've got a little tasty soup that we pressure canned here, and then there's some more kombucha out here in the front as well.
And that's popular. Okay, where have I been? Where have I been? So what's going on in October with that?
Yes, so our first class for fermentation this year is going to be in October, and we're going to teach all things kombucha. We're also going to teach compache, which is, it's a Mexican-originated beverage, but it's very similar. And so we'll go over, the food safety behind it. We'll give everybody a SCOBY to take home, and then we'll talk about just how we want to flavor things so people feel confident whenever they're in their home, so they can do this.
And the SCOBY is something from nature?
If you are familiar with vinegar, has that like a mother, so we call it the mother. It's really that starting culture that you need to get that fermentation process going.
What about yogurt? I know there's...
Yeah, so similar. Culture. You're using a culture to start your yogurts, absolutely.
But you're starting the kombucha as the culture to start.
Yeah, and they're all individual. So for each of these projects, you need an individual starter for those.
And where do you purchase them?
Well, hopefully you have a friend, or you take a workshop at Bernalillo County Extension, and you can just get one to take home as part of your lab fee. If you have a friend that's into fermentation or food preservation, they can probably give you some. There's also some online retailers available too.
I was going to say crazy, but it's not crazy. How long has your daughter been doing this, Dianne Christensen?
Oh gosh, probably 5 years or so.
Is she feeling healthier?
Yeah, she loves it. Yeah, it's just, she just really enjoys drinking it. Yeah. And other forms of fermentation people might be more familiar with is like sauerkraut and kimchi. Those are kind of the same sorts of things. So fermentation is a type of food preservation that kind of stands on its own, and it comes from the just the bacteria fermenting the food, which preserves it.
Ah, the bacteria preserves the food.
Did I have that correct?
Yeah, it creates the acid that then preserves it, absolutely. And during the pandemic, everybody started making their own sourdough bread at home, and that is a fermentation process as well. So you get your flour and your water, you mix it up, and you just sit it at room temperature, and it gets bubbly and it's active, and people get excited about it. It crawls out of its jar, and that's the fermentation process. So
and that's preserving it.
Preserving your food.
So sourdough bread can last longer than another type of bread?
So it's definitely going to be more alive, and it's going to be better for you. Yeah, it's it's good for the gut, it's good for your body. You know the ingredients that are going into it. And, the thing with bread is you don't necessarily want it to last longer. You want to consume it while it's fresh, and the nutrients are really going to serve your body with what it needs.
But with the life culture, you're saying it's even better for the gut. So the class is fermentation, pumpkin spice kombucha.
We're going to be seasonal. This is going to be our nod to, Starbucks, and we're going to do the pumpkin spiced rage that everybody loves around the fall time when we're thinking about Halloween and costumes and getting festive. So we'll be in season.
Who's taking these classes?
Everyone.
Everyone but me so far, I guess.
Everyone who's interested can definitely visit our website. We've got all of the classes listed. The fall programs are going to be available to register in about 2 weeks, so around the middle of August. And anyone really is invited. If you, above 18 is probably preferred for a lot of them. 18 years of age. But if you have any interest and you're a beginner, we'll teach you how to do it.
And these classes, Diane, are in person?
Yes, we're very happy to be back in person. A lot of our classes are moving back to in person, and food preservation particularly, because it's skill-based and they're actually doing the actual food preservation, really does need to be in person. So you can learn it much better that way.
Yeah, it gives you that confidence, hands-on.
Yes.
And it's only, I think you said the October is what, $10 for the kombucha?
Yes.
And some of the lab fees are $20 to buy, I imagine, the products and such. And
correct.
Again, in October, we have the cactus.
All about prickly pear.
Okay.
Yes, we have a lot of prickly pear around Albuquerque, and it's a very popular free thing that we can harvest. So we'll teach it from the beginning to the end. So we'll teach you how to harvest it safely. We'll teach you how to process it, how to steam it, how to preserve it into a jelly. We can make pickles out of it, all kinds of things.
The jelly has this beautiful pink
So
color.
pretty.
It's very pretty.
Okay, that's October. And then we have also pressure canning, preserving meat, soups, and stews, and then canning and freezing red and green tamale class.
Yeah, and with pressure canning, we'll definitely try to get some hunters that are searching for wild game that might not know what to do with all of that whenever they harvest the meat. And then we're also going to teach a pozole and a green chili stew, which is very local appropriate.
And the advantage of the canning and freezing and the pressure canning is to be able to put it on in your shelves on your cupboard and last for a year?
Yeah. So we definitely recommend consuming your food within a year. It tastes better. The food quality is stronger. You want to eat food that's not only nutritious, delicious also. That's the most important thing. So it's not necessarily a food safety concern if it's sitting on your shelf for a year, 2 years. It's more of a food quality. So we want to eat it while it's good. Yeah, and a lot of people don't have a lot of freezer space, or they might be living in a smaller home or an apartment or a shared space, and they don't have the biggest, refrigerator or cooler, or, a nice cave where you can keep all of your preserved goods. So pressure canning and just water bath canning allows things to be shelf stable, and you can just put them in your home pantry.
And you have those classes in August.
Yes.
And still, while they watch the show, this is going to air much of August. Or July, August.
Absolutely.
They can still sign up. And they don't have to do all the classes. They can just choose one.
Absolutely. You can sign up for whichever one.
So on August 2nd, you're going to do water bath canning, pickles, and relish. And I think you have some pickles that you brought.
Yeah, we brought some. There's some okra up here. We also have some other pickled vegetables here as well. And then.
So what is the water bath canning?
Yeah, water bath canning is great. So there's two different types of food. You have high acid food and you have low acid food. So if we think of our fruits and some vegetables, maybe like tomatoes or something, we can just add a little bit of acidity and then we can process that in a water bath canner. And so that's very entry-level friendly for anybody who wants to get into food preservation for home food
so
preservation.
Grab the pickles. That's
okay.
Or is that the acid one?
This is a pickled corn relish right here. So
okay.
Can you see that?
So this is water bath.
Yes, so that one has been water bath.
They take the corn, clean the corn, cook the corn?
Yeah, so you put it in a big pot, you put all your ingredients, and I do want to say that something that's very important to us at the University Extension is we always use USDA approved recipes. So these are safe. They're scientifically tested, they're research based, and they're going to be safe for you and your family to consume, because a lot of people get scared about canning at home because they've heard about botulism or other scary things that can happen when you're canning. So that's why we're a great resource, and so we can provide you with recipes that are safe, that you can feel confident
So basically
sharing.
with the corn, and I think there might be some green.
Yeah, so there's definitely some chili in there.
Chili?
Yep.
Oh, chili?
Yep, absolutely.
That's all cooked ahead of time?
Yep, so put it in a big pot, we acidify it, and then we season it. You can add
Okay.
some dry herbs, spices.
And acidify it, because this is sweet corn.
Yep.
You put a little bit of,
We use vinegar, and that was what we used to acidify it.
and that's going to preserve it.
And it makes it a pickle.
And then you just put it in a jar.
Yep, we put it in a jar, and then following the recipe, we'll process it in a water bath canner.
Oh, okay, what's that? I thought we were done.
You don't want to be done at that point.
I was thinking, that sounds simple.
Now you could just pop that in your refrigerator,
Sure.
and it would be good to go. And
For the next week or so.
yeah.
Okay, what is a water bath canner?
Water bath canner, so you're going to get a big pot. It doesn't have to specifically be a water bath canner. And you're going to put that on your stove top, if electric or gas. If you have a little burner, you could do that. You're going to follow the recipe again. You're going to crank the heat, and you're going to process it.
Put this in.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to put it inside the canner. We'll tell you how many jars, what sizes you can use based on the recipe. And then we get that water up to boiling. You set a timer. We're at altitude, so we do have to be cognizant of how many additional minutes we're adding for that. And, voila, 24 hours later, you've got this beautifully canned jar of pickled relish. Yeah.
That could last, again, for a year.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you don't do the water bath canning process, it'll last a shorter time, like a
Yes,
week or
and
so.
Amber did touch on an important point, that we are high altitude, and that does impact, as we know, baking, but it also really impacts food preservation. And so that's, again, why you want to make sure any recipes that you have are USDA approved and are specific to high altitude as well.
And then, thanks for that, Diane. And then water bath canning on salsa and tomato products will be on August 9th. And the 16th, again, is canning fruits. Much difference between the fruits and the vegetables, Amber?
Really, it's just the recipe that differs. And, if there's something in particular that you have an abundance of in your garden, I know everyone's struggling this year because of the heat, but let's say we get a bunch of pickles or cucumbers or tomatoes, and we just want to focus on that. We can find the recipe for it.
And then after that, we have pressure canning. Now, that
Yes.
just sounds a little more difficult than bath, but maybe not much? Just a different process?
Yeah, the
And do you have a
process.
pressure
Yeah,
can?
yeah. So this is going to be a soup that we've pressure canned, and this has got beans in it. It's a white bean and mushroom soup, and we've also got different tomatoes, and there's also some pasta sauce and things we have that you can pressure can.
So why would we want a pressure can versus water bath can?
So when I was talking earlier about the two different types of food, the low acid versus the high acid, a low acid would be your meats, like if you have a chicken or a fish or some beef that you need to can. So those are low acid foods. So for those, we need to get a higher temperature, and inside a water bath canner, we can only get to boiling. With a pressure canner, we can get up to 240 degrees, which is going to help process that and get the proper vacuum seal for our low acid foods.
Because it doesn't have acid in it. It needs
Correct.
more temperature.
Right. I mean, because I don't want to eat pickled chicken breast, so I'd rather have just chicken breast that's canned in its own juice or in some water.
That's why you don't put the acid in it.
Right.
The acid pickles it.
Right. Right.
Another important thing
Thank you.
that people, especially in this state, green chili is something you definitely need to pressure can.
Yes.
I think you think about green chili, oh, it's spicy, but if it's not safely preserved, it can kill you. So, just really handling your green chili with care is super important.
Do people mainly freeze their chili, though?
We get a lot of people that freeze. A lot of smaller companies are doing freeze drying for chili too, so that's something to look out for. We have some local makers here in New Mexico doing that, and then a lot of dehydrating as well.
Which we're going to get into. So August 30th, we have freezing and drying fruits and vegetables. And you gave me some lemons, which are these, what's the difference between freezing and drying and freeze-drying?
Freezing is great, and it's really accessible for a lot of home food preservationists, because we can just take a sheet pan, we can lay our fruits or vegetables out, and we can pop them into the freezer. If we are trying to dry things, we can use the sun. There's some approved recipes for that, or we can use a dehydrator as well, and that will literally dehydrate. It takes the water out of your product so it can preserve it. And then with freeze drying, it goes through the freezing process, but then it also goes through this vacuum drying process. So it goes through a process of sublimation, and it creates a gas, then it captures it, pulls it out, and then you have this product that's highly nutritious, almost similar to fresh, and then shelf stable for in excess of 20 years.
So these lemons were what, freezing?
Those are freeze dried.
Freeze dried.
Yes.
But I could just cut a lemon, put it out in the sun, and dry it.
Right.
And then put it in the freezer.
That'd be a little bit of a different process, because you're not vacuuming it, so there's no sublimation process happening with that. Yeah.
But the sun takes the moisture out of it.
It does.
There's also dehydrators that are a little bit easier outside. Flies can get on it and all of that different thing. And so dehydrators are nice because they're just about this big. They have different layers. You can make fruit wraps and just dehydrate any kind of thing. And then like green chili is a really good one. You can store it. And then when you make a stew in the winter, you just put it in there and it reconstitutes. And just like fresh. And we probably should note too that freeze dryers require a very specific machine that are fairly expensive, but they're coming out with more affordable ones for the home user. But they're still, several $1,000s. So it's not
freeze drying.
Freeze drying, yeah.
But a dehydration is similar.
Yeah, dehydrators available, and they're probably under $100.
And so the difference between dehydrator and freeze drying is what, Diane?
I'm going to let Amber answer that question, just because it goes to that second process.
Because one machine is thousands and the other one is not.
Yes. Yes. So whenever you're dehydrating, you're just removing the moisture content, the water content, which is making the food pretty stable, and that's very common. We can get one for $100 on Amazon, and then.
But then you can just freeze that.
It would be a very different product that you're ending up with that you would not want to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So when you dry it, you just put it in your cupboard dry.
Right.
Like you can dry your green pili and just put it away. Like put it in a jar and keep it that way. Freeze drying is where it's frozen and then it's dried also in this machine. So but the reason it's nice is it lasts up to 20, 25 years.
And it tastes good, you said.
Yeah, so if we wanted to pour water over those, we could reconstitute the lemons.
We just have a minute to go, but the question is, I asked at the beginning of the show, is this process, preserving things in your own home, less expensive than buying things at the grocery store? Dianne Christensen thought.
It depends. If you have to buy all the produce, probably not. But as Amber pointed out, if you use prickly pears and you can forage for them, that's free. Any other thoughts on that, Amber?
Right. If you have a friend that has a garden that's producing and you have an abundance, you can certainly save money. Absolutely.
And not have to eat it all at one time.
Right.
That's
right.
the advantage,
right?
Right. Because you kind of can get, you love the raspberries, but you can get a little sick of them, right? Except I hear people don't get tired of tomatoes, fresh tomatoes.
No.
Is that true?
Hard to get tired of those.
Amber, thank you so much.
you.
And Diane, thank you
you.
so much for being a part of this program. And again, they can go online, or easy to find Bernalillo County Extension and find out when the programs are. And again, the lab fees can be anywhere from $20 or $10 to $20. So very, very nice price for that. And I guess it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and you get to take home a good. Yeah.
You provide those as well. Peaches and raspberries and pickles and cherries, everything. Thank you. Thanks for all you do through this program. Appreciate it. Thank you again, Amber. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.